Hey guys, welcome back to the GameSpot stage here at E3 2016, brought to you by Airheads Bytes. Today, Scott Butterworth and I are joined by Nick, who's a producer on Gravity Rush 2, and Toyama-san, who is the game director. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
What has the reception been like to the trailer that they dropped on Monday?
Oh, it's been insane. I love the fact that people are so into it. I mean, I think it just really pops off the screen. You know, the team has built Gravity Rush 2 to like from the very beginning to be a PS4 game, right? So taking advantage of that and making all of the animation in the world just so much bigger and having so much more stuff going on. It's been amazing to watch, and the team has just been cranking on it for years now. So everything that we're seeing is just the beautiful product that they've been bringing to life. So I'm getting constant tweets about it. I love it. All the love kind of powers us to keep doing our jobs better. So
God, that's so nice to hear. There's been an outpouring of positivity, because so often it's kind of the opposite. So that's great that everyone's been so excited about it.
I know, it's video games. You think more positivity,
hey,
right?
Man, if there's any week to be excited about games, it's E3 week, right? If there's any time to be excited about what we do, this would be the time. And I will say the game is looking really beautiful. It's such a colorful game, and it's really great to see it so vividly conveyed on the PS4, on the big screen. It's no longer because I remember playing Gravity Rush originally on the Vita.
Yep.
So it's so great to see it come so far and become this huge, lush, just visually splendid experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the team was trying really hard to bring you guys a much bigger, expansive game. I mean, open world action through that awesome Japanese and also Franco-Belgian comic lens, right? Nothing looks like Gravity Rush. And yeah, the color palette is just extreme in this one, right? The first one, lots of greens, lots of browns, right? Now we have lots of blues, lots of all sorts of colors just, going at once here.
I would say that the world is it's such an unusual mix. I mean, like you said, the sort of European stylings, but also weird little steampunk touches, and obviously some flares of Japanese culture throughout. Yep. I was wondering if you could talk about sort of maybe the research or even just the art that inspired the world that we're seeing.
ちょっとインスピレーションについてちょっと説明してもらえますか。
そうですね。もともとフランスのコミックのバンドデッシュに影響されたんですけど、そこに僕が子供の頃から好きだった日本のアニメーションやコミックの影響、それからヒーローものの影響とかそういったものが全部ミクスチャーされたものがグラビティラッシュの世界観。
そう、この舞台に関してはちょっと研究してたんですよね。メキシコとの旅とか。
そうですね。ワンを作った後にメキシコに行ったり、あとアジアのいろんな国に行く機会が多かったので、そこから受けた印象っていうのが大きく影響されてます。
Yeah, so we're seeing lots of stuff. So they did a lot of research going to Mexico, to Asia, a lot of very, very beautiful environments that you're seeing really reflected here. They're in this new area called Jirga Paralao. It's very much inspired by Central America and stuff like that. Too. So that market that we saw in the beginning was very much, a reflection of that. You saw people juggling. You might have seen animals running along the ground. They're doing so much more now than they could have with the original Vita.
Sure.
That they're just delighted to bring it to you guys here. And the map in the game is actually 2.5 times bigger than the original game too. So if you thought the first one was a pretty big experience, you're in for so much more with Gravity Rush 2. So.
Actually, on that subject, can you comment on sort of the structure of the game and how open it is, or how it will compare to the way that the first game was structured?
Yeah. So I mean, you're going to find a very similar structure in here. You'll be going from area to area, eventually getting access to everything at once. But the whole idea is that you're shifting gravity, you're falling from place to place. Nothing's too cut off from you. And we're actually giving you new ways to traverse that environment. What we're seeing right now is the lunar style. It's a new gravity style you access by flicking up on the DualShock 4 touchpad. It lets Kat actually zoom towards her enemies with this wormhole kick that we're seeing, and it lets her just kind of zoom and fly. So she'll dive off here, and she'll be able to get to her next location. Almost a Superman type dive like that, and teleport. So I mean, we're really upping the arsenal here in terms of what you can do. We'll see a new style in just a few moments as well, but very much open world, very much the structure that you're expecting. So if you played Gravity Rush 1, if you played the remaster that released in February over here, you'll be very much at home with what's going to be happening.
It's so interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say it's so interesting to think of Gravity Rush almost like a superhero game. I never thought of it in those terms before.
Yeah.
But it kind of is in a sense.
Yeah, and Kat is a very unique hero. You know, she kind of had the responsibility thrust upon her. If you played the first game, you know she saves a little boy at the beginning, but his house comes crashing down, and people are upset at her. So, you know, and you can see whenever she shifts gravity or does things, it has unintended consequences sometimes. So her growing into that hero that we know she is a big part of the story, and it's a big part of the story in this one.
I have a question for Toyama-san. Obviously, he's known for being one of the key creators behind Silent Hill and Siren. How much of a departure from that? Obviously, the game is completely different. What was that like in terms of creative mind shift, really?
ホラータイトルから、
はい、
グラビティのような鮮やかなタイトルに作ることに関してはどういうふうに違かったんですか。どういうふうに変わったんでしょうか。
実はもともと作りたかったような世界観としてこういうのがあって、でその中で、仕事としてホラーを作ってみたらそれですごく評価いただけたんで、ちょっといい時期になったので昔からやりたかったことにチャレンジしたいなというふうに。
So this is always the kind of title that he wanted to create. Now, he obviously had a lot of success with horror titles back in the day, but this is really, you know, something he's been wanting to realize and kind of bring to life for a long time. So in terms of like shifting back and forth to it, I don't really think it took too much because it's always kind of been within him, always something he wanted to do. So you're really just seeing something brought to light here that's, you know, something they wanted to manifest for a long time.
What was there any key moment or any key thing that he saw that inspired it's obviously a very unique gameplay mechanic.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a lot before. You know, being able to, so there's actually a very famous comic by Mobius. I don't know if you're familiar. He's the one that kind of created this like bande dessinée, and I'm butchering the French style of Franco-Belgian comics, right? In a very famous one called Linkal, which is a sci-fi comic, and it's all about like kind of falling and gravitational shifts and stuff like that. So there's a lot of influence of that on display over here. And then adding to that, there's like a dash of manga. He's a big fan of Toei. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that company. They make like Sailor Moon and like lots of feminine hero characters, right? So you can definitely see that in here as well, right? So it's really kind of all those things coming together and realizing this, you know, this bright, beautiful game. So.
You know, we've been seeing a lot of little sort of story exchanges, just like conversations happening with like someone's face popping up and a little text popping underneath. Is that how most of the story will be conveyed? Will there be cutscenes as well? I was wondering if you could talk about just sort of the way that story will be conveyed.
Of course.
The experience.
Of course. So yeah, lots of the story is going to be in that same kind of comic format, just because we are, you know, playing homage to those like, you know, comics of yesteryear. So you are going to see that. You'll be able to shift around the controller to get a better angle on things. But then you know, you will see some stuff animated as well. We'll see you know, a scene coming up here in just a moment that'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. You might remember the flashy finishers that we had in the first Gravity Rush. Yeah, they're definitely in here. And what we're seeing right now actually is Kat and her rival Raven, her friendly rival we met in the first game. She's actually joining you for these fights to help you out, you know, whenever you have trouble. So if someone's griefing you, or you know, if you can't get quite to somebody, she'll help you out. She'll team up with you for certain attacks.
So are you telling us there's co-op in the game? Is that?
Well, it's she's very much AI controlled.
Okay.
It is still that single player experience, and we really wanted to emphasize that just because that's what players are expecting. It's all about Kat's story, so you're going to be controlling Kat in the game. But she's there to help you. You can see she was helping you wind up there. They're taking out this huge boss, and scale is just going to be unbelievable in this one too, thanks to the PS4. I mentioned those
This is the finisher you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Were there always plans for a sequel? I mean, a couple of complaints of the first game was that the story kind of tailored off at the end, but it left scope for the sequel. Was that always planned, or did Gravity Rush become just a success?
Right. So they had their complete story completely before they did the first game. They got through about half of it in the first game, and then, you know, quickly wanted to get the second part out of it. But you know, when they were figuring out what they could do with PS4, it just took a little bit longer to get all of that out. out there. But yes, it was always a complete story. So we're seeing the second half of it, basically the second big part of it, with this sequel that people have been waiting for. So
I think it is actually a really fascinating thing about this game that this series started as a Vita game, and now the sequel officially is a PS4 game, so it's jumping from the handheld to the console. I was wondering if you could talk, I mean, you've already touched on some subject, but if you could speak a little more to the changes that needed to be made and sort of the challenges that the team faced in bringing it to a full console experience.
It's just, I think with PS4, people have always expected, big, amazing environments. They expect a lot to be going on. So they did their best to bring all of that to the table. You go into an area with people, they might, they acknowledge you, they'll kind of get out of the way. There's little touches, Kat will like kind of tuck in her knees when she's flying by something. It's all the little things that I think people are expecting, when you think about a big PS4 game, right? But then the scale, just something bigger, something that you just can't experience anywhere else. Like that's really what they wanted to do here. And if any of you haven't played the remaster, it's a great primer for getting into this as well.
Yeah.
Because all those controls translate so well to a DualShock 4, and if you've experienced it on there, it's amazing. You can still control her with the gyro in the middle of the controller. And you'll be right at home here. It's the exact same control setup, with some exceptions.
I feel like this is, maybe a bad idea, but have you guys thought at all about VR? Because I feel like the idea of falling through gravity, like that mechanic might translate in a really cool way to VR.
Yeah.
Assuming you don't throw up.
Yeah, actually, I was with the team in Japan when they were showing off a little bit of VR stuff they were doing. The game is purposely meant to be a little disorienting. That's
Sure.
Gravity Rush, right? You're hanging on top of buildings, and it's also very intense in any kind of VR situation.
Sure.
So there isn't exactly any VR specific stuff for this game. Toyama-san has told me that he's personally very interested in VR and would like to do something, but there's no concrete plans at this point. That's something to be decided in the future, but would definitely be a very interesting concept for Gravity Rush, I think.
Obviously, Toyama-san has been in the industry for a long time, created some fantastic games, but he says Gravity Rush is the story he wanted to tell. What kind of highlights from the development can he talk about?
開発に関しては、いくつかの面白い思い出とかがありますでしょうか、グラビティに関して。
どういったのがいいですか
そうですよね。なんか面白い時とか開発してた時にこれが一番目立ちますとか。
印象に残ったところですかね。特にスタッフが頑張ってくれて、雲の中入れたらいいねとか。ダメ元でダメだなって言ってたんですよ。だったらスタッフが頑張っていつの間にか雲が本当に漂っていてその中に入れるようになってくる。
Yeah, so the staff is always working like really, really hard to do everything they possibly can. He can't say too much about things from back and forth there without like really consulting with them too much, but being able to really like fly around and like fly through those like clouds and stuff that you see in the ground and making it come to life is like something that has been really amazing for him. So yeah, that whole sense of gravity and making it be realized, that's what it's all about. So the fact that they could do that is something that they're really proud of. So yeah.
I imagine that's got to be pretty challenging to design something that, it's not super intuitive. You're doing something that, as you said, it feels somewhat disorienting. So I imagine finding a way to balance that while creating the game, like, how disorienting is too disorienting.
Yeah.
That has to have been a pretty serious design challenge.
Yeah, and we pass builds back and forth a lot and talk about what's too much and what's too little, and what people are expecting versus what we can really deliver to them, and trying to make sure that we're giving something that's fun and exciting and new and fresh that's not like anything else out there. It's a long process. and this one's been, as I said, it's been a few years in the making, and sometimes great things take time. So we're really happy to bring it here. It's on the show floor, and it's going to be out this year. So people are finally getting a chance to see the end of Cat's story, and we're really happy.
So it's just at the end of Cat's story.
Yes.
So are there? I'm curious. So
yeah,
can you tell? So is this the final game for Cat? There's not going to be more Gravity Rush after this?
Well, we're billing this as the conclusion to Cat's story.
Okay.
So that story that they wanted to tell, the one that started with Gravity Rush, is going to find a conclusion here. As an IP, really can't say. You know, you never know where things might take us. But if you're looking for a nice conclusion to Kat's story, if you want to find out where she came from, what's with all these powers, what's going on, it's all here in Gravity Rush 2. We'll go deep on that. So
Awesome.
Nick, you said it's out later this year.
later this year.
Do we have a release date yet?
Not yet.
Just 2016.
2016. It's definitely out this year, and we'll be able to tell you a lot more in the upcoming weeks. So
Well, thank you to you and Toyama-san for joining us. Guys, for more E3 coverage, of course, make sure you stay tuned to GameSpot.com.